Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and today we're going to be taking a look at some new screenshots for upcoming content in Final Fantasy XIV that comes out of the recent Korean Fan Festival opening keynote. Yeah, for those who don't know, the Chinese and Korean versions are not on the same patch schedule as the global version is, at least not yet. At the Chinese Fan Festival, they said they're getting really close to being able to release things on parity, and they echoed that at the Korean Fan Festival as well. So soon the Chinese and Korean versions may well be competing simultaneously for things like World First, even if they're on completely different versions of the game technically. But it's just their Dawn Trail Fan Fest. They, the trailer, going over who all the characters are, the stuff that we saw at our Fan Fest. But they still usually throw a few things in. For example, at the Chinese Fan Festival, we got a new picture for the new Ultimate that's coming out, Eden Ultimate. And so that made waves. And other than that, there wasn't really a whole lot. The Korean Fan Festival did more of that, but not for Ultimate, for other content that we're coming to expect that's still not in patch 7.05, where we currently are with Final Fantasy XIV, or 06, or whatever we're on right now. So we've got 5 screenshots here, and we're going to be taking a look at them, and I'll be explaining what it is you're looking at. So for the most part, for the first, half to 2/4 to 2/3 of the opening keynote, it was all stuff we'd seen. They were going over characters we would already know. They showed the trailer. It just, again, FanFest stuff. But when they got to the Echoes of Vana'diel raid, first they showed all the screenshots that we've seen up to this point. I think really they just showed the Shadow Lord screenshot was the big thing. But then they showed this screenshot. This is a brand new one, and for those who have played Final Fantasy XI, it is instantly recognizable. So we know that the raid is Juno the First Walk, but I've also gone on saying that the location that we know we're going to, where the Shadow Lord takes place, is not supposed to be anywhere near Juno. So we were trying to figure out, is it like a new type of throne room that's in Juno? Is it how are we going to connect those two pieces? That just got both more clear and more confusing with this screenshot. This is what is known as the Dragon's Eyrie in Final Fantasy XI. It is a location that doesn't have very many enemies in it, but it's most notable for having the ability to spawn one of 2 bosses every day, every 21 to 24 hours after the boss was last killed. Now, that boss is called Fafnir, and that is the boss that you're seeing on the screen right now. I believe it's Fafnir. I think Nidhogg and Fafnir are mostly the same model. I'd have to look at them side by side. But given we have a Nidhogg, I think that they're just going with Fafnir. This is kind of like the general Wyrm model that they use for Final Fantasy XI. And it's one of the most, notorious monsters in Final Fantasy XI. The Dragon's Eyrie would be filled with hundreds of people in Final Fantasy XI's peak, all with different groups of 18 people, all with different link shells, which was, link shells were basically free companies sort of back in Final Fantasy XI, or at least we treated them as such, vying to claim the boss and then defeat it. Now, it was one of the first major bosses that was added to the game, at least one of the major world bosses, and it's notable for a handful of things. A breath attack that's more lethal the closer you are to the front of the boss, an AoE. Oh man, I have to remember the difference between Fafnir and Nidhogg and their moveset, because there is a slight difference in the way that they fight, but they're mostly the same fight, with Nidhogg having buffed up stats. I believe he had an aggro reset. Did this one have AoE Terror? I think it had AoE Dispel. I have to remember, because they started adding new moves to the Chains of Promethea Worms, but the big thing that it's known for, there's 2 things. It's a wing attack, a giant AoE wing attack that just did massive damage. It could spam it back to back, and was generally a problem for, lesser prepared and lesser geared groups. The other was Spike Flail, which would pretty much instantly kill every single person that was in the Dragon's Eyrie if it ever went off, because the attack would not exclusively hit the party that was fighting it. Now, Spike Flail could only occur when Fafnir, Nidhogg, or any Wyrm model actually is auto-attacking a target behind them. They'll swing their tail instead of turning around, as long as the target is still in range. If they move out of range, then the whole boss will turn and face that person instead. If it's Spike Flail, it almost certainly killed every single person. Some people would survive, maybe some of the tanks and some people who had ninja shadows up, but it's definitely what it's most known for. It's just kind of cool to see, but Juno is nowhere near the Dragon's Eyrie, and Dragon's Eyrie is nowhere near the throne room where the Shadow Lord is. So Echoes of Vana'diel is actually looking to be a best of hit in some capacity that was probably going to loosely tie the Final Fantasy XI story bits together with its major antagonists. But we now know Fafnir is one of the bosses. Juno has a few possible options for bosses that could occur there, but it kind of starts throwing out a lot of the things that we were predicting and moves more down the kind of fandom path. Now, Is it going to be cohesive and coherent? We're still hoping for that. While a best hits for Final Fantasy XI is a nice way to celebrate 22 years this year of, being in service, we do need a good story. And tying all these locations together could be fun, could be a spectacle, but I'm obviously, reserving judgment for how they handle the actual outcome of the story. But cool to see something new with the Final Fantasy XI raid. The only thing new that we saw, and I'll probably do a longer video going over the history, the controversy, the drama that comes from this boss. Oh, and I mentioned that one of two bosses could spawn. Fafnir was guaranteed to spawn pretty much every day, but every 3 to 8 days, instead of Fafnir appearing, it would be replaced with Nidhogg, who was just a way stronger version, was able to use more moves when it was closer to death. It was far more aggressive and just more dangerous in general. Funnily enough, though, Fafnir was generally the more desirable boss because it had a very rare drop, a sword called Riddle that could hit 2 to 3 times. Was it 2 to 3 or was it occasionally? It was 2 to 3, yeah. And people waited years to get that as a drop. And yes, I do mean years. So, fun little history lesson with that. Moving on to the next screenshot, we have this. This is actually a concept image from Cosmic Exploration. Perhaps it is the device with which we will travel across the planets. It looks to me like an interdimensional transporter, which is a crazy sentence to be saying given what what that would mean. But more likely, it's like a lightspeed gate. I think that's probably makes more sense, especially when we see the next image that comes up after it, which is also from Cosmic Exploration. My Discord said, what in the PSO2 is that? I mean, yeah, kind of. I was thinking more Armored Core, but that's because it's one of my favorite franchises. This is something to do with Cosmic Exploration. I mean, you can even see somebody sitting in the cockpit right here. You've got the back leg joints, which, by the way, in Armored Core would make it excellent for it lifting off the ground. It's got, it's like literally, I could almost name these parts in Armored Core. Like, I could find this exact. We could make this in Armored Core almost certainly. It's a little bit shorter. The head and the core and head is a little bit different because generally the cores in Armored Core are more distinctly body, and this is more like the head is. It's almost like Alien, like from Alien, where you can see the head kind of is this long slick back thing with the body just kind of like just kind of leaning back from the neck. I'd have to assume it's a mount that comes from Cosmic Exploration. I think we would all assume this is a mount, but it'll probably serve some story purpose as well. I wonder what it is, because it's supposed to be crafting and gathering content last we saw. They really need to explain more about Cosmic Exploration, because I'm very, very curious as to how this ties into it. Then we had this screenshot. So this was actually when they were talking about the field operations, and this is a screenshot of some ancient, civilization. Well, you can see all the corridors, you can see all the stairwells and what like that. This is a very similar aesthetic / structure that you would see in something like in Dawn Trail. Like, this is very similar to other things that we've seen. But for those who don't know, the field operation is called the Occult Crescent. Now, the Occult Crescent is more directly tied to Crescent Island from Final Fantasy V, and that's why we have all the Final Fantasy V sprites on the side right here. Crescent Island, while it is an important place in the story for just certain events that take place around there, I wouldn't say it's a pivotal thing. Crescent Island, when you go to it, your ship gets essentially sunk, and then you find it underneath and you find out there's like ancient structures down there where not only has your ship been pulled in, but there's also an airship, which is how you eventually obtain your airship. And it ends up being tied to the ancient ruins of Ronka, which is, or at least a similar technology when the Ronkan ruins rise out in the Earth Crystal and you have to pursue the Earth Crystal. So I'm wondering if this is going to dive deeper into some of the stuff that we found over in... what's the cactus dungeon? Tender Valley. Because we obviously have some very Ronkan-esque structures. I mean, we have the Great Serpent. He's just not the Great Serpent of Ronka anymore because we're not on the first. So I'm curious if this is going to be tying those bits together. Why was that there? I don't remember the exact lore of Tender Valley, so I'd have to brush up. Didn't really pay that much attention to it the first time through, but it's just not fresh on my mind. Ivy, come back here. I saw you being cute over there. But yeah, this is just another little teaser, something, Final Fantasy V related. I don't know how much they'll dive into that. I don't think this needs to be like a whole Final Fantasy V-esque thing, but just another cool little preview. And then there was only one other brand new screenshot. They announced like they're doing the 16 collab, the Fall Guys collab, They showed off the collector's edition. And then they just showed this. This was another Korean exclusive cash shop glam. So basically, we'll be getting this at some point years down the line, most likely. You know me, I'm not much of a glam person. I don't have much to say about this, but I figured I would just show it off. Just nice outfit. Again, I'm not the person to criticize, point out details. That's all on all of you who do far more glam related things than me. Once I realized I was colorblind in life, I gave up being fashionable. So 33 years of being very lame. But that's the stuff that came out of the Korean Fan Festival. If anything gets translated or anything comes out of the other panels, I'll let you know about it. But in the meantime, looks like I guess I've got another Final Fantasy XI. I got to do a little more research because like I tried to do most of the Prish stuff from memory, and there's a few things that are just flat out incorrect in there. So I definitely got to kind of reach into my history more so, less in my brain and more so in like what's documented with Fafnir, because I know a few things that are well documented with it and where to find them. So I'll be sure to pull some of that information out for you, although I really could speak on it from experience. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this video. Be sure to like and subscribe. Stay tuned. Obviously, as we're waiting for 7.1, any sort of little news tidbits that pop up, I'll do my best to bring them to you. Maybe there'll be an interview. Nothing happened at a TGS interview-wise. Maybe something will come out of the KR Fan Fest. Who knows? Anyway, I will see you in the next video. And until then, take care.